What's up, Wellness Junkies? It's the girl with the business brain and yoga body, Sabrina Zealous, welcoming you to Yoga Socialite. This is the place where asana meets aesthetics. So we're here for the good vibes, the cute fits, and the real talk. Let's get into it. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Yoga Socialite pod. I am your host, Sabrina Zealous, and today's topic is going to be equal parts spicy and healing as we are talking about frenemies, how group texts are the new burn books, and cutting soul ties. You know the vibes, those group texts that turn toxic, that now feel like modern day burn books. I hate group texts, by the way. There's like 3 group texts that I actually enjoy. If you know who you are, you know who you are. My Texas girls, my LA girls, my family group texts. But I am not a group text person. And there's reasons why, and we'll get into that. The frenemies who smile in your face but throw that subtle shade. And of course, the soul ties that linger on and on and on and probably should have been cut months and some of you even years ago. We're going to talk about how to identify these energies and more importantly, how to release them with grace. So, you know how I love to do things short, sweet, and to the point. So we're going to hop right in. I do want to say they have decided to cut our trees today. Do they not get our recording schedule? I mean, hello, this podcast is world renowned. But no, they're cutting our trees today. So if you hear loud saws or random machinery in the background, it is because they are cutting the trees. I say that and then voila, there is the sound. But we're going to carry right along because that is the true practice of yoga, folks, is how to breathe and continue your practice regardless of the circumstances around you, all right? So first things first, let's talk about frenemies. And I'm going to give you some examples of frenemies. Before I give you the definition of frenemies, let me give you some examples because I think that's going to trigger the definition. Some of the great frenemies of our times. Regina George against anyone in the movie Mean Girls. Definitely against Caddy or Lindsay Lohan's character. Amber from Clueless, the original frenemy, who was frenemies with just about everyone in the Clueless cast, but definitely Cher and Dion. And let's say Angelica Pickles versus Tommy Pickles. A little Rugrats reference there. But those are some prime examples of frenemies. And of course, in today's age, there are tons of other examples that you can think of. Maybe drop in the comments what frenemy you were thinking of. But we've all had those friends who secretly compete with you, who throw shade as jokes, who bring more drama than joy into your life. The thing about frenemies is they thrive on blurred boundaries, and it can make them hard to spot at first. I've had many frenemies during my day, and I'm thinking of one specifically right now that has been a frenemy of mine probably since like 7th or 8th grade, and I haven't had much interaction with her since we graduated high school, but I did get a DM from her a while back. And gosh, I wish I remember what her Instagram name was so I could try to pull up that DM and read it. But I think she kind of called me out for my cleavage. Yeah, we're not even kidding here. So when I was in high school, I hadn't even broke 100 pounds, y'all. I was like a good 90 pounds soaking wet forever. I remember I got to 100 pounds my freshman year of college. Now, as an adult, I am now like 137, I want to say. I'm 5'10" for reference. And so now I have got some, like, I've gained weight in the right places. I always say that. I'm very blessed that I only gain weight in the places that you want to have weight in, which is the top half and the bottom half. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, genetics, for that. And my frenemy, again, has been my frenemy since about 7th or 8th grade. And we've always been frenemies. We've always had the same girl group, but there were times where she wouldn't invite me to things because she didn't think that I would have wanted to go, or she would invite me to things, but it'd be like backhanded compliments the whole dang time.
And I have no clue why we are frenemies. I don't know if it was because we were both minorities in our friend group or what the case of it was. I don't know what underlining jealousy or underlining bad juju there was between us, to be completely honest with you. But we have been frenemies since then, and there's always been backhanded compliments. There's always been like this slight competition between the two of us. And not too long ago, I want to say maybe 2 years ago, I can't remember because I just didn't respond, and hopefully she did unfollow me on Instagram because honey, we too old for this now. And that's not the energy I bring in or allow into my inner peace. But with that being said, I remember her making a comment like, when did you get cleavage? Like, I think trying to insinuate that I had some work done. Now, there's nothing wrong with getting work done. I'm all for improving yourself. And if you feel like that is the way that you need to do self-improvement, more power to you. I'm all for you do you, honey. However, just because I have aged like fine wine and have grown in places, so sorry that I have cleavage, tried to insinuate that, I had some type of extracurricular done to myself. And I was just like, girl, I haven't talked to you since high school graduation, literally. Maybe freshman year of college, like when we were all driving back, and like visiting our families. But like, we have not had a true conversation in years. How dare you come in my DMs? So those are just examples of frenemies. Not to go off on a tangent about that, but those are just some examples of frenemies. So frenemy, that frenemy energy. Frenemies are really hard sometimes, again, to establish boundaries with, because a lot of the times your frenemy is also friends with your other friends. And you know that you are going to have to interact with them. And you don't want to cause any rift in your friend group because of the frenemy, but you also have to start setting boundaries with those frenemies. And part of frenemies can also be tied into group texts and how they become burn books, but we're going to let that kind of be its own subject. Those backhanded compliments, that low vibe energy, the trying to call you out in DMs when they haven't spoken to you in years, that's that frenemy energy. And how do you identify that frenemy energy? I think you know when you have a frenemy, and you just have to start to establish boundaries with them. I have a frenemy to this day. I've been in the desert 1 year, and I already have a frenemy in the desert. And it's someone that likes to compliment me, but also like compliment me in a way that makes me feel uncomfortable. Like they'll give me like a shout out about something, but it's also like trying to make me kind of feel guilty for finding success in something. And I have had to set boundaries. So just like I didn't respond to that original DM from my OG frenemy, this frenemy, I have their number, not restricted, but where it's like on mute, so I don't get alerts when this person messages me, so that I can read their messages when it is convenient to me, because I do have to interact. A lot of times you still have to interact with your frenemies. If you're at work, prime example, if you have work, you probably might have, everyone has a work wife or work husband, but sometimes you have a work frenemy, and it's that person that's always trying to throw shade at you, always trying to call out what you haven't done at the office or wherever your work environment is. And you have to start to set those boundaries with those people with grace. How do you identify them? They're the person that you get that inkling, that feeling, your intuition is calling out to you, telling you, hey, this person does not have your best interest at heart. Keep them at an arm's distance, okay? It's someone that if you are a Christian, I pray for my frenemies. I do. I say, God, please bless them. I just leave it short, sweet, and to the point. God, please bless them. And I let God figure out what that blessing is for them, okay? But I also have set boundaries with them. I won't reply to certain messages like the OG frenemy. Like, I'm not responding to that message, sweetheart. Sorry. Like, I keep it very real. You see me on social media. What you see is what you get. I am so sorry that I have gained weight in all the right places, but I'm not going back down that road. Good luck to you. Best energy to you. let's keep it 100 and you do you, I do me. There's no need for like a family reunion. And for the frenemies that like you can't get rid of in your life because again, they work with you or there's someone that you have to interact with all the time. Even people that are in your family could be frenemies. Thank God my family is amazing and I don't have that, but there's definitely people in people's families that can be frenemies. And you have to, one, listen to your intuition, notice, maybe even take note. Gosh, how many times has this person given me a backhanded compliment or made a situation where there was no situation or tried to create drama for me, and then start to establish those boundaries. That could be muting their text, like I've had to do with my current frenemy, muting their text to where you respond to them when it is convenient to you. That could be taking what they say to you and instantly, even if you don't say it verbally out loud, just saying, I release what they've said about me or what they're trying to compliment me on or what they're trying to do here. And I call in my greatest good. So that is my little rant on frenemies, but I wanted to call that out because I've seen so many Instagram posts about this lately. So I know that this is something that other people are experiencing. And I've seen it even on TikTok, people that kind of throw shade at other people, but they're supposed to be like in the same girl group. And that's just not the vibe. That is low vibrational energy. Dear frenemies, that is low vibrational energy. Take the time to think, why do you have a problem with this person? And stop comparing yourself to the person that you, and I'm calling this out to the frenemies out there. If you're listening to this and you think you might be the frenemy, figure out what is going on with you that you feel it is necessary to make the comments that you are making. And then establish what you can do to be the best version of you. And maybe the person that you feel the need to make these comments to, you don't need to make these comments to, and you may not need to have much interaction with them because there is something in them that is causing you to behave in that manner. And you need to establish what is going on with you first before trying to have that type of human interaction. That's my frenemy call out. Moving on to group texts and how they are the modern day burn books. Like I mentioned, am not a big fan of group text, y'all. Group texting me, I mean, it's hard for me to even respond to even my family group text. I'm so bad at it. My family will call me out. Like my mom will kind of tell me like, go read the family group text. It's just hard for me to keep up with it because I have so much stuff going on throughout my day. You know, I'm managing a yoga studio, which has like 20 plus teachers, 150 something members. Like I have so much stuff going on throughout my day that it's sometimes hard for me unless I have set some time aside to like go through my text messages to even establish like that I have gotten a group text. Okay. And so I'm not the best at group text, but I have left a few group texts because it has become a burn book. There's backhanded compliments in there, that same low vibe energy that you would find with frenemies. And I don't like that. I don't like when a group text turns into just a subject about someone else. And it's one thing to share like, oh my God, this is what's going on with this person. Like, why is this happening? Can you give me some type of, like I've had a situation before, like where another friend and a friend were, two friends were kind of at each other's ends. And, you know, they wrote into a separate group text like, hey, I'm trying to understand like what I did wrong here. Here's our messages. Like, what can I do to do better? And it wasn't anywhere from malice. It was really just a place to create peace and to reestablish and call back into that relationship. That I'm fine with. But when it becomes like everyone's gossiping and there's low vibe energy, that I'm not okay with. Burn books, as you know, for Mean Girls, are those places where you rant and you rave about whoever and whomever. And I've noticed that some people's group texts are like that. And I say, if your group text, if this sounds like it's getting familiar and it's hitting close to home, that maybe you establish some boundaries in your group text, or maybe you leave the group text completely. There have been times that I've left group text completely, or I've just stopped responding and they remove me on their own. Like they start their own little group text that I'm not included in. And that is perfectly fine with me because I just can't respond to that kind of energy. And last but not least, we're going into breaking soul ties. Last year, I made a podcast episode called Cutting Soul Ties. And if you've seen my recent Instagram post, if you're not following me on Instagram, definitely do. It's at Yoga Socialite. But on Instagram, I reposted my old post, kind of revamped it a bit about cutting soul ties. And we'll go into those steps that you can find on the Instagram post, and I'll make sure to link it in the description so that you have it. But Cutting Soul Ties was my most listened to podcast of last year. So thank you all for listening and or watching. Last year it was mainly a listening podcast. So thank you all for listening last year. But Cutting Soul Ties was my most listened to podcast. And I think it's because it can be so hard to cut those deep emotional and energetic bonds that we form with people. Whether it's an ex, or your frenemy, or a toxic situationship. Sometimes these connections linger in your heart and mind long after the relationship ends. And it holds you back from your personal growth, from calling in your greatest good, from finding the person that maybe you're supposed to be with if it's someone that is an ex that you're holding on to that energy. Cutting soul ties is something that I learned from my mother. And I learned this at probably the age of 12 or 13. I wasn't even dating then. I was a very late bloomer. Hello, I was 90 pounds soaking wet. I was a very late bloomer. I wasn't even dating back then, but my mom, I remember, was listening to a pastor, and if I can find who that pastor was, I will link it in the description box. But I remember the pastor saying, calling back into you the parts of you that you have given to other people. You've kissed this person, so you call back into your mouth. You held hands with this person. You call back in that energy of holding hands. You were intimate with that person. You call back your heart and your soul and your energy from that intimacy with that person. And I remember hearing that like at 12 and 13, and that really stood out to me. So cutting soul ties is something I have been doing since probably about 17, because that's when I actually first had a relationship, or a situationship, I should call it, is when I started to figure out you have to cut soul ties with people to find growth and to heal. So it has been very easy for me, and I wouldn't say very easy because there's been, and y'all know, the friends who know, and those who have been with me for a while know that there were definitely times where I tiptoed back into situations that I definitely should not have. But when I am done, I am done. It's like turning off a light switch. It's like, oh, that's easy. Click, I'm done. And I cut the soul tie. So I want to give you some tips on cutting soul ties and why you need to let them go. Breaking a soul tie isn't bitterness. It's about reclaiming your energy. It's about calling back into who you are. It's about letting your light shine brighter. It's about saying, I deserve peace, and I'm making space for what is meant for me. So my 4 tips to cut soul ties is to number one is to cleanse your energy. You can start with an Epsom salt bath. It's that simple. If you don't have a bathtub, start with a really hot shower. Maybe put some eucalyptus oil in there and clear that energy. It isn't just for self-care. It is an energetic reset. Add lavender, essential oil, or eucalyptus, like I mentioned, whether you're taking a bath or if you're taking a hot shower. If you're taking a bath, soak. I would say probably at least 20 minutes, soak. And visualize all the energy from that person leaving your body. And then when you drain the tub or when you turn off the shower and you see the water going down the drain, imagine that is the energy from that person going down the drain. My second tip is to write it out. Grab your journal and write down any lingering emotions, any unspoken words, any unresolved feelings, or even things that you would have done differently. Write it out. Let it all out. And when you're done, either burn those pages or rip them up and throw them directly in the trash. I remember doing a soul tie, like full moon thing where I had wrote down some things and I burnt them and I recorded it and put it on Instagram to hold myself accountable. And the person that I was actually burning it about sent me a message from it. And he was like, I feel like this is about me. Well, duh. And that's why the soul tie is trying to be burnt. Hello, let it burn. And that will happen sometimes. Where as you start to cut that soul tie, that person, it's like how in retrograde, all the exes come out of nowhere and start to DM you or comment on your pictures or like show up at your place of establishment, which has happened to me before too. And thank God I live in a city now that I have no exes in. Whew, thank goodness. But as you try to cut those soul ties, that person will sometimes energetically feel that energy being released and they don't have that connection to you, and they will start to try to tiptoe back into your life, and you just keep on cutting that soul tie and you keep on resisting. Resist the devil and he will flee. And then I want you to call back your energy. That's tip number 3. Close your eyes. No, close your eyes. Seriously, right now, close your eyes and say, I call back every part of my energy from this person. I call back my heart, my love, my time, my mouth, my body, and I am whole. Seriously, call back every part of you. Any part of you that's still lingering for them, call that part out especially. And say to yourself, I am whole. In with that, I am whole. Because you are calling back who you are, and you don't need them to be whole. Now I want you to visualize those pieces returning to you. As I was saying that, I could see it in my head. It was like a cloud. Like I was one big cloud and all the little cloud pieces were starting to come into me. That's how you want to see it. You want to visualize it coming back into you. And last but not least, affirm your freedom. Affirmations are reinforcing to healing. I love affirmations. We've already spoken about the science behind affirmations. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, listen to some of the original pods, because I call out how scientifically it's proven that affirmations tap into your frontal lobe and they start to help create this universe, this energy, this place of where you really want to be, because it starts to create situations where they can see the affirmation coming into fruition. And you might try just a simple affirmation. I release what no longer serves me. I am free. I am whole. And I am ready to receive all the love and joy that I deserve. Short, sweet, and to the point. Doesn't have to be long. And last but not least, we want to talk about letting go our frenemies, letting go those burn book group texts, and letting go the person that you need to cut soul ties with grace. I'm going to tell you, it can be easy at times. When it's time to go, sometimes it's just time to go. I will definitely say that. But it can also be hard, and you can also find yourself tiptoeing back into situations. And I've been guilty of it myself. That remember, you're not losing that person. You're making space for what is aligned to your highest good. When you're letting go of that frenemy, sometimes your frenemies can make you feel so good, because sometimes they like feed your ego, and then they'll do something to you that is just catastrophic. Think about how many times that Regina George told Caddy, you're like really pretty. You can sit with us. Oh my God, you're like so clueless. You're so sweet that you don't know, like you're like an alien. You don't know all these things. And it makes you feel good because you're like, oh my gosh, I am pretty. And these girls like me and all of these things, or this person likes me. And that can even go to the person that you need to cut soul ties with. Maybe you need to cut soul ties with your frenemy. But remember, you're not losing this person. I could have responded to the person that was in my DM that I haven't talked to since high school and say, girl, like I could have went in there and gave her this whole speech like, oh my God, thank you. I could have been nasty nice, and I could have said, oh my gosh, thank you so much for noticing that I gained weight in all the right places. Like, what's been going on with you? I could have felt the need to do that, but instead I just felt the need not to respond at all, because it wasn't worth my energy. I don't want that connection. Even through a DM, I don't want that connection. I've had exes come out of nowhere that I've not spoken to in 10 plus years. I've lived in I've lived in California, LA, and Palm Springs for the last 10 years of my life. So I've not spoken to this person in 10 plus years that have come out of nowhere, that have even messaged my mom, pretending to be people that I knew from back in college and was like looking for my number. My mom's like, no, like, who is this? Like, I don't have this number saved. Who is this person? And I didn't respond to them. But do not fall into those traps, friends. You're not losing anyone. Those people have already been lost. There's a reason why you're not with that person. You're making, again, space for your highest good. You have to know when you're ready to do that. When you feel drained after every interaction with a person, time to cut the soul tie, time to leave the group text, time to start to set that boundary with your frenemy. When their name pops into your head and you don't get a spark of joy, time to cut the soul tie, time to say goodbye to the energy, time to leave that group text. When you catch yourself wishing you had more time for yourself when you have interactions with them. Those are all different examples of to know when you are ready. And rituals to honor that goodbye, again, write that person a letter saying bye. Create a goodbye ritual like the cutting soul ties like we talked about, and then surround yourself with people and practices that fill your cup. Spend time with people that make your light shine brighter. So final thoughts, letting go of frenemies, getting out those group texts, and cutting soul ties is not always easy. It gets easier with practice and with time. But it is always worth it. May not be easy, but it is definitely worth it. Your energy is precious, or your time is limited on this earth, so don't waste it on people or connections that drain you. And I'm a firm believer that you will repeat the same cycle over and over again until you figure out how to get out of that cycle. So why don't you not have to rinse and repeat? And why don't you get out of that cycle? Let your washer machine cycle go to the end, okay? My listeners challenge this week, I was going to say listeners. In true mean girl fashion, I have mixed two words together, of course, is to try the cutting 4 soul ties ritual. Oh my gosh, can't talk now. Now I'm tongue twisted. Break away from a group text if you need to. And DM me if you need some encouragement at Yoga Socialite, or comment down below and let me know what soul tie you've cut. And if you need any encouragement, you can comment there as well. But that's it for today's episode. It's a little spicy. It's a little healing. It's spicy and healing. It's equal parts, okay? But we had to call that out, and it was very important. I think this was a very important one because not only when I wrote this one last week before the LA fires, and it was supposed to be last week's episode, and the LA fires happened, and I felt that was more important to have a conversation about. But in doing so, in that week, I had some frenemy interaction. And it was so necessary and needed to bring this and call this out. And I know it's something that I'm not the only person that's experiencing it. I've talked to a couple girls at the studio, and I saw one of them posted something the other day, and I wish I could find the post, but it was on her story, so I know it's gone. And it was about that, like that person that like is giving you the backhanded compliment, the person that is like always watching what you're doing and then trying to give you critiques or whatever, and it doesn't have your best interest in mind. I was like, I gotta call that out. I have to call that out. And it's something we need to talk about, because I've even had people in the yoga community try to use the Yoga Sutras to validate their points on how they're being a frenemy or how they are trying to raise someone to their greatest good. It's not always your need to raise someone to their greatest good. They're getting to their greatest good on their own. That's why it's their greatest good. Who are you to try to cut someone down to try to lift them up? You're not Jesus. You're not God. You're not the universe trying to give them an example or trying to give them a learning lesson. You're just a you. And everyone's experiencing something at each time in their lives. Everyone's going through something that you may not even know about. So why not give a little kindness instead? That's the tea. Thanks for watching. Make sure to comment down below if you use the cutting soul ties ritual. Make sure to follow me at Yoga Socialite for daily tips, tricks, techniques, and all the things in between. And I hope you have a beautiful and fabulous day. And I will see y'all next week.